Look what I said. Go back and read what I said. And tell me if you think I called anyone who voted on the side of the position taken by Bull Connor that they were Bull Connor.
But not from this president. Is he really concerned that we may not have fair and free elections?
The president has been consistent on this issue. And the issue at hand, the issue I was there last.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
What's going on, Habibis? I'm Siraj Hashmi.
I'm Mujahed Kobbe.
We're the Habibi Bros. Welcome to a premium episode of Habibi Power Hour with a very special guest tonight. We're going to get right into it. Sara Higdon. Assalamu alaikum, Sara. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Sara Higdon, for those of you who don't know, is a content creator and host of Transformation, or is it Transform to Freedom? Did I get it right?
Yeah, it's Transform to Freedom. It's a play on words, too. If you see it says trans form to freedom.
Man. Do you think that you are free, Sara?
Yes. 100%.
Essentially. All right, you always got to drink. Man, she already knows the rules. What are we drinking tonight, Sara?
So I actually have something right here. This, a friend of mine owns, or their family owns Tarpon Springs Distillery. So this is some of their top-notch award-winning moonshine. So that's what I'm drinking.
Wow. So
going off for
really
the hard
getting
stuff.
Yeah, we're really getting lit tonight. What about you, Jay?
I am drinking water. I got a little fucked up last night.
Jay, when did you turn into me? I'm turning into you because this is what I'm getting into.
Do it, baby. Do it.
Angel's envy. Little angel's
because
envy.
I got to work out later on tonight too.
Oh, Jay, you little bitch. Well, Sara, we're so glad to get you on the show finally. I had the pleasure of joining you on your podcast in December, and it was a good time, but it wasn't like I'm not used to being a guest. I'm always used to being the host. So it's always like I'm never uncomfortable as a guest. I'm always fine, but I always feel like I could get to know somebody better when I have them on my show. So this is
I mean, I did leave you speechless though.
What?
There was
I'm
one
trying to remember. What did I do? What did I say? What did I not say?
We were talking about vaccines and why these companies are pushing the way that they are. And then I used the Bo Burnham joke.
That's right. And I still haven't watched that. So yeah. Actually, I'm really glad that we were able to do a show today because there's a lot more spin happening from the White House, and starts off this morning with Vice President Kamala Harris going on the Today Show, and essentially
100%.
Oh, Jay, stop drinking, you piece of shit. He's gonna get me really fucked up now.
Oh yes, I mean how the turntables have turned.
Yeah. Well, apparently the rumor is Jay's pregnant. Is this true?
It is, and it's Jessica Alba's baby. And the funny thing is, she got me pregnant from eating her ass.
Ooh,
that's how I got pregnant.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
It really is. I don't know how it happened. It might be her husband's. Now that I think about it, but
life finds a way.
It does. No, I was going to be a little late, but luckily
because you're getting your ass eaten.
No, it was a play on when a woman says I think I'm late.
Oh, you're like oh. Wow, that really took me a long time to get. I just got it.
Well, when you don't have sex like you don't, I mean, those type of references are hard to come by.
They are hard to come by. Come. So Kamala Harris went on the Today Show and tried to clean up after President Biden's marathon press conference in which he cast doubt on the legitimacy of the next elections or any election really if his John Lewis Voting Rights Act doesn't get passed. Hit it, Spencer.
Another comment the president made, he openly cast doubt on whether the 2022 midterm elections would be legitimate. He said it all depends, which is astonishing to hear a president question whether our elections will be legitimate. We've heard it before, but not from this president. Is he really concerned that we may not have fair and free elections?
Look at that smug
The
fucking
president
look.
has been consistent on this issue. And the issue at hand, I was there last night in the chamber of the Senate. And the issue is that there are two bills, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act, that have been the solution that has been offered to address the fact that around our country, states have put in place laws that are purposely making it more difficult for the American people to vote. Laws which will be felt by at least 55 million Americans, regardless of their party affiliation, their race, their gender, or their geographic location.
Well, to the point, though,
And
because
so
those
we have
bills
been
were
clear,
debated.
and it's- but it's-
yeah, the bills were debated and they didn't
Ma'am,
pass.
if I
So
may
the
finish, if I
of
may
course,
finish.
But the specific question, if you don't mind, does he think now that these bills haven't been passed, that the 22 midterms won't be legitimate or fair or free?
Let's not conflate issues. So what we are looking at, and the topic of so much debate last night, was that we as America cannot afford to allow this blatant erosion of our democracy, and in particular,
Why did they think
all
that
Americans
she
who are
was like
eligible to
charismatic
vote
or
to have
was able
access to the
to
ballot unfettered?
be on
That is the
TV like
topic
this, to
of the
push any type
conversation,
of
and let's
issue?
not be distracted by the political gamesmanship when what is truly at stake are issues like whether Americans with disability have the opportunity to vote by mail, whether a single parent has the opportunity with 3 kids in the back seat to vote by dropping off their ballot in a drop box instead of having to stand in line with those 3 kids for hours. These are the issues that are at stake.
And the president
they're
laid a lot of
significant and pivotal issues in terms of our democracy. We had an extensive conversation about foreign policy, Savannah.
Yeah,
Well, I've met with prime ministers and presidents from around the globe, both partners and allies of ours. They are asking what is going on with voting rights in America, because they look to us as a role model of what it means to be a democracy. And they are monitoring to wonder and question whether there is an erosion of our democracy, and therefore an erosion of one of the best role models of what a democracy does and can do.
I would love to see a list of those allies and partners that she's talking about. I bet the leading one is like the fucking Taliban.
Well, Canada too. Remember?
Yeah, or Canada. Yeah. Sarah,
they have to do something to invade, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We do have to invade Canada, or just nuke them entirely.
Canada's threatened to invade us
over the election.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's so so cute.
We got to preemptively strike them out of the face of the earth. I mean, they all live in one little place anyways. Just strike there.
Yeah. So Sarah, when you hear that, when you hear this spin from Vice President Harris following President Biden's suggestion that if these two bills don't pass, which they didn't, they failed in the Senate because the Senate majority of 52 senators, that's 50 Republicans and 2 Democrats, voted against changing the filibuster rules from 60 to 50, a simple majority. What the hell goes through your mind, especially everything that happened that we saw over the last year with the previous president, Donald Trump?
Well, this isn't anything new. I mean, it's pretty rich. I mean, Trump wasn't the first person to question election results. I mean, I live in Georgia. Stacey Abrams was questioning our governor results 2 years prior and never gave it up, never conceded victory. Hillary Clinton never conceded victory. And so it's just a political football that gets pushed back and forth. And I honestly don't understand how you can say that you had the most voter turnout ever and then say that we're not going to be able to vote in the next election. Like in the state of Georgia, we didn't have drop boxes until last year.
Right.
And now there's
the year before,
county.
yeah, right.
Yeah. It's I mean, this is the first year that was the first time that we ever had drop boxes. And now they're limiting drop boxes to one per county, but still, you can still vote via drop box. It's not going to change anything in that regard. And I also, I mean, I just saw everything that happened last year. It was pretty crazy. Like in November when they were talking about like voter lines and stuff like that, and you see, like I drove past all these voter polling places. Like we have 3 weeks to vote. I mean, it's not like it's just one day to vote. Anybody can get out there and vote.
Yeah, it's almost like they want to make that. You know how there was the push some time ago, Jay, where they wanted to change election day to a national holiday. That's completely gone out the window.
Right. I mean, that would help. That would help right then and there for voting rights. I mean, make it a 3-day national holiday where everything gets closed and you're allowed to leave early from work or whatever and go and vote. That would help a lot more than, different places where they can harvest votes or drop boxes or any of these other measures that they pretend are what is necessary in order for people to vote. My favorite thing that happened the last time was when they wanted to put laws in place where moderators couldn't hand out water or any of that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh my God, they want Black women to die in lines and not be able to vote. And you can't vote because you're going to die of dehydration instead. It's fucking November.
It's November.
It's these people don't understand the law. Now, there's plenty that's wrong with this new Georgia law, because that's basically what they're doing this all for, is because this new law passed in Georgia and other states are kind of following suit. There's plenty wrong with that. I mean, the Libertarian Party is trying to challenge different provisions of the law, but they're most of it's not that bad. Like the whole water thing, it makes sense when you actually read the law, but most people are not informed. They do just listen to talking points. It's like, I mean, we see it all the time, even on Twitter. Like you have people that post an article and people only read the headlines because the whole argument was debunked in the whole article, So like what the perception that headline creates is completely false. And technically they're not false in the headline, but they create a different perception what people are actually reading into the article.
Yeah, and look at this bit of misinformation, or maybe I guess we could call it disinformation, from Hillary Clinton tweeting out and then deleting. The U.S. Senate is now on the record. 48 Republicans and 2 Democrats are in the history books for using the filibuster to do what the filibuster does best: block the right of Americans, particularly Black Americans, to vote. For one, she's wrong on the math, which is hilarious because, this is someone who's, I don't even know if she wrote this tweet, but we're just going to assume that she did. And on top of that, you look at that last line: block the right of Americans, particularly Black Americans, to vote. There has never been an example cited of anybody not being allowed the right to vote.
Well,
every single time this happens, it's always like, oh, Black people are disenfranchised. Black people, you can't give asking for ID to vote. Black people can't get IDs. They can't go to the DMV. They can't get government issued driver's licenses or any photo ID to show the person who they are. And then in the same fucking breath, like within the same sentence, they're being like, oh, where's your vaccine card? Exactly.
Like anybody, this is, and people have started to really realize that there is racism of low expectations. And when it comes to Black people and minorities, there is a lower expectation that they should be able to do stuff. And when you really start to understand it in that sense, it's like this, like you are the racist. And I mean, Hillary Clinton, her husband signed the 94 crime bill.
Right.
Which was designed to put more minorities in prison.
Yeah. And which probably and also people forget Joe Biden was a co-sponsor of that 94 crime bill. Everyone forgets that. Yeah. Everyone remembers about Hillary. They all forget about Joe. And then, of course, Kamala Harris, when she was the district attorney of San Francisco and then the attorney general of California. She obviously used those laws to lock up the parents of truant children.
I saw a
Jay,
meme the other day that said on Martin Luther King Day, it's like Kamala Harris would lock Martin Luther King up, and that was perfect.
Jay, of course, is a racist after what we heard last night, right?
I was actually going to mention this. I'm surprised we're even allowed to have this stream tonight because I thought you guys were going to get canceled.
Oh, because of what I said. totally taken out of context, and everything that I said, I heard from my mother, like verbatim, was said and taught to me by my mother. No, but it's hilarious because, like you were saying, all of that I was saying last night is an example of the bigotry of low expectations. It's like, for example, you can't put a Muslim cartoon up there because then somebody's going to blow shit up. So if you do that, you're the one being Islamophobic. And it's like, really? I don't think so. And it's the same thing how they like to treat minorities here. They like to treat them as if they are second rate. Meaning, if you are saying that a black person can't do something a white person can do, you're saying he's a second class citizen. You're the ones doing that, not anyone else. Nobody's putting laws in place to do that when you go vote or putting IDs in place or anything like that. Everybody has to go get an ID. And most places like Georgia, we're saying that even if you walk up there without one, they'll issue one for free right then and there so you can vote. So there's really no barriers to go and voting except for just getting to the line or getting to the voting booth or dropping off your ballot. The reason why I don't like a lot of these like mail-in ballots or any of the stuff, especially like here in California, it depends on what you're registered as. And then if you don't vote on it, they'll just count it as what you're registered as. But maybe you didn't want to vote that way. Maybe there was an issue or a prompt or something like that you wanted to vote against. You can't. And I think it's just, most of that is just really stupid. If you really care about it, if you really care about voting, if you really, like you said, you have 3 weeks, go do it.
Yeah, but I actually have a secret. I think low-key, Jay, low-key, I think you're a lib.
Low-key, you think I'm a lib?
Yeah, because you complain about California so much, and yet there's nothing actually preventing you from leaving.
Well, there's a few things there's a couple of things preventing me from leaving California. Like, what are you talking about? I got a couple.
That's what a lib would say.
5 different type of things that are here. I mean, yes, California is absolute garbage when it comes to everything about it. But number one, you can't beat the weather.
Well, Mary Lynette, who is a devoted Habibi and the mother of Jay, says he never blames his immigrant father for anything. You guys, SMA.
Oh, of course, the white woman throwing a brown man under the bus. Look, and you're like, how did he learn all this stuff? I didn't even put it up there. She did it herself.
It just breaks my heart, man. I'm with you, Mary. I'm gonna drag his lib ass for you. So Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary. Now, I have to obviously note today is the 1-year anniversary of the Biden administration officially starting with the inauguration of 2021. And of course, Biden has terrible approval ratings. He's down to 33% as of this week. And Jen Psaki is continuing to deal with the fallout over Biden giving Putin essentially
100%
the green light to invade Ukraine, or what they call a minor incursion. Go ahead and play that clip.
Elections are going to be suspect.
Well, I talked to the president about this last night and this morning. He was not intending to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the 2020 election. He was actually attempting to make the opposite point, which is that in 2020, Despite COVID, despite many attempts to suppress the vote, a record number of voters, Democrats and Republicans, independents too, turned out in the face of a pandemic, and election officials made sure they could vote and have those votes counted. He was also explaining that the results would be illegitimate if states do what the former president asked them to do in more than a half a dozen states in 2020, after the 2020 election, toss out ballots and overturn results after the fact. And his view is that one of the most important roles we can play now is informing and educating the public on what these laws are, on efforts to suppress their vote, and even beyond the laws, efforts in different states across the country to make it more difficult for them.
Elections are going to be suspect.
Just brazenly lying like that is just amazing. It's on the same level as McAnus and what's the other guy's name?
Sean Spicer.
Sean Spicer. I swear to God, like just brazenly lying the way that they do is on the same level as those two. I don't see it any other way. I really don't.
Real quick. That wasn't the clip I was looking for. So Spencer,
I know it wasn't.
fired. But it's okay. You know, we needed to play that clip anyway. Sarah, let me at least. Is this the clip, Spencer? I swear to God, if it's not the clip, I'm going to shoot you. It is the clip. All right, play it.
That is the, have to be very eyes wide open about that and clear-eyed that is the intention, potentially of him and certainly of members of his party.
So to be clear, the president is satisfied, even if, because yesterday, obviously, voting rights hit a wall in Congress right now without the votes for the filibuster rules to be changed. And given the conversation you just had about other avenues that could be taken, if there are no changes in terms of voting rights legislation going forward, the president does still feel confident that the elections this fall will be legitimate.
Yes, have to be very.
That wasn't the fucking clip, Spencer.
What the fuck? It's the one about Russia. About
it's okay. I don't think there's actually. You know, it's about just I don't think there's. I don't think there's actually a clip. But there's.
Okay, so he's not.
So I'm just really giving. I'm just giving. There. Yeah, he might not be the boomer there. I might just be, busting his chops. But Psaki issued a statement after the press conference that President Biden held, stating President Biden has been clear with the Russian president. If any Russian military forces move across the Ukrainian border, that's a renewed invasion, and it will be met with a swift, severe, and united response from the United States and our allies. President Biden also knows from long experience that the Russians have an extensive playbook of aggression, short of military action, including cyber attacks and paramilitary tactics. And he affirmed today that those acts of Russian aggression will be met with decisive, reciprocal, and united response. Sarah, you served in the military for over 7 years, and you served in Afghanistan. Did you also serve in Iraq?
No, just Afghanistan.
Just Afghanistan. All right. So, you've been up close to the Russians laying Afghanistan into basically a wasteland after they invaded in the 1980s. And of course, our uncle Osama pushed them out. I'm
not that old. I don't know how old you think I am, but I wasn't old enough to serve.
No, you weren't part of that, but like you were there in Afghanistan within the last decade. So like it wasn't that far removed. Yeah, 2013. Okay. So again, I'm a boomer, but of course that's a consistent thing. When you hear President Biden sort of, whether it's a gaffe or whether he actually meant it, what goes through your mind when you hear the presidents go through this period? Because it doesn't look good if you are trying to establish some sort of dominance as a country on the global stage.
No. In reality, it's hard to say what we should do in that instance, but when you start speaking like that, you have to be willing to answer it, like with words. You start speaking those words, and you have to be able to answer it with force. And anytime that a Democrat has ever been in office and they draw red lines, it almost causes the people to cross those red lines, and then we don't do anything. So it actually weakens us as a power to not, like, we're not actually going to do anything. We wouldn't do anything to Russia. They're too important a global ally to us in order, so that we wouldn't do anything to them. And so
Are they really an
know
ally
that.
though, Sarah? Or do you actually think that Russia is an ally to the United States?
I don't know if they would actually be an ally. They're not. It's kind of like, not really. I mean, they're not.
Like I look at them as I look at them as a frenemy, if anything.
They're an acquaintance. Like they're not our friend, but they're not our foe. Like and they're a power that we wouldn't want to go to war with, because it would be, and I don't think the American public would have the wherewithal to actually stomach a war with Russia.
Right.
So we just drop bombs on brown people.
That's the best way to do
Jet.
it. Right. Inshallah.
Exactly.
Inshallah. 100%.
No, the one thing I think, like Sarah was saying, is when you state that there's a red line not to cross, and you have allies there, you have to back that up.
Yeah.
Even if it's going to be unpopular and people are not going to like it or anything like that, you have NATO there. Ukraine is an ally. You're supposed to protect them, give them defense mechanisms, all that kind of stuff, and you put a red line in place. And then, Putin will just step all over it. And it makes no sense for him to even give a shit about the red line, because what happened in Afghanistan to our allies, the promises we made to our allies there, and all of that kind of stuff. And even after all of that damage and failure of a withdrawal, that was the Afghan withdrawal, Biden still came up and said that he holds no responsibility or blame or anything of that happened there. So
that was disgusting.
They just don't care.
See, and I think that's one of the things that people don't understand is I think we've known probably for about the last 11 years that the Taliban was always going to take back over.
Right.
But
you think so? You like in your heart of hearts, that's what you really think?
I think we knew. I think we always knew. Just
if we
knowing
left completely, they would take over.
And that's why we haven't left for the last 20 years, is because we knew that they would take over. It was just what president was going to be the unpopular one and do it. Now, with that said, I still think that it just didn't make sense. Our withdrawal from Afghanistan didn't make sense at all. I mean, you guys know the area.
Right. Whoa.
What a minute.
What do you mean by that?
We know the area.
Siraj,
what do you mean we know the area?
Maybe
shit.
Siraj. I mean, from being from Pakistan and stuff. But holy shit. I mean, come on.
That's what I meant.
I lived in Dubai. All right. Like, I lived in glamour. I lived in high-rise buildings, Gucci, fucking Ferraris. And then I lived in Lebanon with, Hezbollah and learning how to throw
Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad. Before I let you continue, Sarah, Faye Bibi has a question saying, well, no, she doesn't have a question. She has a comment, not a question, of course, because Faye Bibi always has to get in those dunks. Sarah, Siraj is one of the rare Pakistanis bad at math. Dates are hard for him. But I actually do have a question from Jane Beepty. She says, what branch did Sarah serve in?
So I was a logistics officer in the Army for 7.5 years. Yeah. So I was in the 101st in 2013. We went to Afghanistan, and then I served in the 82nd for 2 years.
Oh, logistics, so cool. You like planned parties and shit?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Parties on actually we closed 3 FOBs when we were in Afghanistan, so that was my responsibility. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, we were withdrawing withdrawing back in 2013, which is why this whole thing seems so being rushed and everything like that doesn't seem make any sense. And we closed we closed the largest FOB in the Paktia province within 2 months, and we were like the test subject to do that. Yeah.
So when you hear this, when Donald Trump was running for president in 2016. It wasn't one of his main policy platforms, but it was specifically part of his America First agenda, and that is specifically getting the U.S. out of foreign wars.
Yep.
By the time his presidency ended, a year ago today, the United States was still in Afghanistan, and Joe Biden basically became tasked with withdrawing the United States entirely out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Why do you think Donald Trump didn't go through with getting the U.S. out of Afghanistan?
I think if he had gotten his second term, he still would have. His plan was to get out by May of last year. So, and that was kind of what I was going into before. But I think that any president, it's all about their legacy, and they didn't want, again, I think the reason why he didn't do it early on in his presidency and he did it after his second term would have started is because we always knew that the Taliban was going to take back over, and it would have been a stain on that, and he wouldn't have been able to get reelected with the liberals pushing against that, seeing what happened. But the thing is he understood military strategy enough to know that we had to. His plan was to withdraw during the wintertime, which is a huge difference. I mean, there's no fighting going on in the wintertime. It's a huge difference. And then Ramadan fell during May last year as well. So those are two key things that people need. The people that when Biden pushed it back, he withdrew right at the end of the fighting season, and no key holidays or anything like that would have prevented what happened. And then I did a whole video on why General Milley should be fired and my whole reaction to that withdrawal.
Okay, so let's get a synopsis of this. Obviously, we all know why, and we all know that General Milley needs to be fired, but give us a quick rundown of why Milley needs to be fired, and and also tell us, why do you think he's still on?
Well, first off, it's his responsibility to advise the president. If he told the president to go later, which we won't know until he writes a book,
which will inevitably happen.
Right. Exactly. It's his job to advise the president of these key events and why we should do it a certain way and why we should push back this withdrawal date, why we should do it this way. It should have been his responsibility to know the closing of Bagram Air Force Base. So we closed Bagram Air Force Base, which had 2 runways to be able to withdraw people, and went down to just Kabul Airport, where it only had one. Kabul only had 1 runway. So when you look at it, and his excuse in the press conference after this all happened was that it would have taken more manpower to run both sites. But if that's your concern, instead of getting everybody out safely, it doesn't matter, because you can simultaneously withdraw from both sites and be out at the exact same time. That's military does that best. And then they sent the 82nd Airborne Division and called up the GRF, which is basically it's called the Global Response Force, that they can respond to anywhere in the world within a 48-hour notice, which is the last year that I served in, we were the Global Response Force my last year that we were in. So we could have deployed anywhere. They ended up calling them in to secure and to help with those withdrawals from Kabul, whereas the 82nd trains every single day on airfield seizures and securing an airfield at the initial instance of a invasion. So all you have to do is take those people and put them at the Bagram Air Force Base to secure those airfields, collapse the perimeter, and then simultaneously withdraw from both places instead of just one. It really didn't seem to be that well thought out of a plan, and that's not something that's at the president's level. He just is giving, we need to be out by this date. You figure out how to execute. That's how the military works. I give you an end state, you execute. And so that's the short of it. And then General Milley, his woke comments were the first thing that, the white rage comments.
Absolutely fucking insane. That's the most important thing in the military. My thing is it's they want it to be more diverse to look like, society. And that's not what the military is for. The military is not to have, it's not to have people there just to fill a quota so they can fill a quota. It's supposed to have the best of the best. If a woman can't compete with a man and there's one job, then it has to go to the man if he's better at it than she is. Not has
yeah.
to go to the woman to fill a quota. It's not supposed to work that way whatsoever. So those comments, they just sound so weak to come from like a military or a military person. And I think they sound weak to other people. Like there was a side by side. I don't know if Spencer can find it, but there's a side by side on a like a cartoonish type army ad for the United States. And then there was one for Russia that was just like a complete fucking like a Rambo style fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like to show the differences.
Yeah,
that's really where the military's idea should be.
Yeah, it is. Our ads to get people in have started to become woke and stuff like this. Now, one thing that I kind of get frustrated with is like this week there was the dancing soldiers in the TikTok video. I don't know if you guys saw that video.
Oh yeah, we did.
Oh, we saw it.
I didn't have as big of an issue with it as most people did. Like, have you ever met soldiers? That's what they do in their downtime. Like, that is what they do. They're kids. They're 18, 19 years old. So I don't have that big of an issue with something like that. But our advertisements being like, oh, I have 2 moms. Like, that's what the military is trying to bring in. Like what does sexuality have to do with anything? Now, on the other comment, I actually... it wasn't that long ago when General Mattis was the Secretary of Defense, and he told a group of soldiers to hold the line. We don't have the same issues as society has. I just need you to hold the line and maintain it, and that's absolutely true, because in the military, you don't care anybody's skin color, sexuality, any of that stuff, as long as they can do their job. That's all that matters to anybody else. It's one of the least woke places in the world, and everybody's cohesive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it obviously, for the military, there is a common objective, a common goal, and that's to secure the interests of the United States, and obviously be the first line of defense against basically any threat. So this idea that we now have to be concerned about white rage, or we have to be concerned about any of these, culture war issues, is just so beneath the military that it just makes anyone question, why would they ever get involved? Why would Milley ever say something like a college professor? Because that's not his role. That's not his lane.
No.
Just stick to your lane.
Exactly.
They can't. I'm still surprised there hasn't been one resignation over this. Honestly, I thought like when you saw them fall off of the plane, right then and there, I was like, somebody has to be losing their job over this. Somebody has to be losing their job over this. And the fact that we're not playing this over and over again to just shove it in their faces is insane to me. This is a huge backlash. I mean, we had a story of a meeting in Trump Tower replay for months on end, for a whole year, for a whole 4 years. They played that shit. But something like this dies down in the first 2 months, if even that.
Well, that's that's the media narrative, and that's how they didn't like Trump, so obviously they're going to promote stuff. It's the same thing with anything. Look at the like what happens anytime a minority of any sort commits one of these mass crimes. It's gone within a week. Like it's gone.
We're not even talking about the Colleyville hostage taking anymore.
Yeah,
because the perpetrator is
my cousin
and mine too. That's how Jay and I were actually related.
I thought you guys just.
I mean, we do that too.
Yes,
I mean they encourage. It happens. It happens. So, yeah. Anyways, so yes, as you were saying, Sarah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but basically you're saying that anytime a person of color commits a heinous act, the story goes away almost immediately because there's a narrative to be that needs to be upheld.
100%. Yeah.
Eventually. God damn it. Continue.
No, what's next? I think I said what I was gonna say. It was perfect timing.
What the hell are you showing me, Spencer? Zoom in. Is this a Meth Sandel tweet? It looks like a Meth Sandel tweet.
Yes, it is.
Max Abrams tweets out the Texas synagogue terrorist attack was a 24-hour news story, and then Meth Sandel tweets out the amount and type of coverage anti-Semitism receives in much of the U.S. media depends entirely on the perpetrator and not the victims. Even in our own story, we are relegated to pawns in the political narrative. Complete afterthoughts. Couldn't say it any better than that.
Well, and going to the any military story that's out there too. I mean, we had 13 soldiers killed, and how long did that play? I think the American public in a lot of ways got desensitized. And now during the Bush administration, any military death would have been news. Like there was the COVID, you know, how COVID, they had the count on their,
Yeah.
They had like the military death count on there at that time to play off emotions. As soon as Biden got elected, or as soon as Obama got elected, that went away.
Yep, it did. I mean, and there's nothing there. The story about how a lot of these people were not vetted properly was a day story. That was it. There we have like 60,000 people that are not vetted properly when they were trying to say that this was all vetted 100% great, all of this type of bullshit. And nobody went off and asked Jen Psaki again if they stand by those claims when we know for a fact that's all false. It's
Well, how did they? I mean, that whole story too. The that synagogue hostage situation. The thing is they messed up. Like our people messed up. Like the ABC people messed up because that person had a criminal record in England, or he was on a terror watch list in England, and then he was still allowed to come to the United States. Like, I thought we were supposed to have stuff in place so that didn't happen.
His name was Muhammad. They have to let him through. It has to happen. I don't get randomly selected anymore. I used to get randomly selected all the fucking time.
Well, that's interesting because I thought that was something that we would have in common as being randomly selected every time we go through the airport.
Right. And now it doesn't happen. I'm like, what? But I'm wearing my special underwear. You can take a peek. As long as you use the gloves I like, I'm fine. But it doesn't happen anymore.
Well, see, it doesn't happen to me anymore, but for different reasons.
Look, when you said alphabet people, I initially thought, is she saying LGBTQ?
No, I was talking to the FBI, but yes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, the ABC agencies. Yeah, I guess.
Well,
man,
I kept that on my profile. Like I have a talent for getting randomly selected because I've had that since day one, and it helps people like find me and see where I am.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Naturally. 100%.
Naturally. God damn it.
Fuck you up, motherfucker. This every day, every time we do these live and all that kind of stuff as well, I'm the only one drinking. The guy brings a beer and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be drinking. Look at him. He's getting trashed.
I hate you so much. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about we got maybe about 17-18 minutes left on the public viewing of this. We're gonna do some stuff for the exclusive Habibis on Patreon after we pass an hour. But Matt Walsh went on Dr. Phil, Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, and he went up against two non-binary individuals and essentially
100%
asked them to define what a woman is. Do you have that clip, Spencer? Do you have it on hand? If not, I can play it. We can play it right here. Do you have it? Got it.
That's a question I would like to throw out to other members of the panel, actually, because just like the 4-year-old can't answer what is a girl. Well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman?
Well,
can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what does a female mean?
Well,
how
that's
do you define a female?
someone with female reproductive organs.
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing, when you're female, it goes right down to your bones, your DNA. So that's why if someone dies, we could dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have no idea what they believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Interesting. So I'm trying to understand. Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female, you said, right?
Correct. Is a biological female.
So what happens if we have maybe someone who is female, identifies as a woman, right? Cisgender woman, right? As you just explained, maybe doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're talking about that are reproductive organs.
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not
But
myself.
You used the word. So what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
that describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently. Trans women are women too.
Okay.
And you want to hold on. You want to reduce. Listen.
Tell me
You
what
want
the
to
word
reduce.
means, though. So
you
that's
want to
the
reduce
problem.
women. You want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals, our chromosomes. Right. That's what you're saying.
You want to do is
that's what
you want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood.
Okay.
And turn it into basically a costume that can be worn.
So that's Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire on Dr. Phil.
I hate these people.
Sarah, you recently went through a transformation yourself, and you've been very open about it. What goes through your mind when you hear this?
So the non-binary people, they irritate me. And I am not a fan of Matt Walsh. I don't know. I'm kind of like with him. I disagree with him on a lot of issues, but he's actually he's correct in this situation. Like absolutely correct. Like the two non-binary people, like if a word is up to the person who identifies as it to define it, then it means nothing because it can mean anything to anybody. So basically they are erasing what the word woman means. Me as a trans individual,
you use trans individual.
Yes. So I do not go off of this mindset that trans women are women. I say trans women are trans women because it's an important distinction. As a trans woman, I don't have the same lived experience as a biological female. So, and for me to say that and women don't have the same lived experience that I have growing up male and then transition to be female or be a woman. So I don't see the harm in differentiating between trans women and women. General society sees me as a woman, treats me as a woman, and respectfully, I people call me by she, her pronouns. They do all this stuff for me, and it's great. But at the end of the day, I don't think that there's still a differentiation when we're talking and having these online discussions. It's one thing to treat somebody a certain way in person and be respectful of them. And it's another thing to have these nuanced conversations online, which there is a difference, and we need to acknowledge that difference. There's no reason to say that I am a woman because I was born male. Like I was born male and transition to be a woman. So I am a trans woman. The non-binary people and that whole crowd, they irritate me and they can go away. I hate the fact that they use the trans moniker to espouse these ideas because being transsexual, I've actually have a gender dysphoria diagnosis, and I've taken medical steps to transition. Non-binary should have its own letter if you want to go off bit, and not transgender. You go back to transsexual, and non-binary can have their own letter in the alphabet world, and just not use like everybody that doesn't identify as their given sex to define them. Yeah, it's not trans, because you don't transition to anything different, and they can't say that. They can't give a definition, because otherwise, if they gave the definition, they would have to admit that most of like their identity is based off of gender stereotypes, and they can't be seen as sexist because that's what they've always pushed against.
Right. So when you heard Matt Walsh at the end of it state like they're doing it to play costume or appropriate a woman, identity and stuff. Do you think there's a lot of truth to that, womanhood and stuff like that for non-binary in of itself? Because I feel like non-binary has been a huge, like it's new, or it might not have been on the mainstream like it is now, because everybody wants to be so accepting in Hollywood and stuff, so they can touch you when you're a kid. But now, I feel like there's this huge like trying to say that if you don't accept this, you're a bigot, and it's like, well, what if I don't accept this because I think it's harming the person to live their life this way? You know what I mean? Like, I honestly think that this person maybe needs help to help them find out where exactly they need to identify as, because they, like you said, they put this umbrella thing. They're never really going to be one way or another or anything. And I just feel like it's going to be more complicated for them when they're growing up in adulthood and everything.
They've basically made anything that's gender non-conforming, like tomboy, tomgirl, like being more feminine as a boy, like they've made that into its own thing. Like it's not something that's always happened and been like, okay, you're just more of a tomboy, or you're just. But that's part of the issue. Is it seems like. That's why there's a big trend, and most of the trend's been young. Has been with young females to call themselves non-binary and get double mastectomies and stuff like that. It's because they're more butch. They would normally be like a butch lesbian or a tomboy, and so then they identify with this group, and then the detransition. I've been kicked out of 2 Reddit groups. Like I've been banned from 2 Reddit groups for saying that detransitioner, like. Transgenders are real, and when the detransition rate skyrockets, it's going to hurt actual trans people, and this is what we're seeing right now. That's all happening, and now it's just making everybody that's trans look like we're all these crazy nut jobs. And now people are like, there's people out there on the more gender critical side that doesn't want any trans representation. Like they even want to cancel people like me. They're trying to deplatform people like me out there. It's really interesting to watch.
Yeah. So those 2 Reddit groups that you've been a part of, are they specifically focused on like these particular discussions? Like, is it part of the trans community exclusively, or the LGBTQ community? Like what is the
No, they were both trans Reddits. Now, if you know Reddit though, Reddit is you think Twitter's a cesspool, go on any trans or LGBT Reddit site. Whoo, they are the most communist, like very hard. Like I don't understand it. Like, how do you think that you're gonna do well in a communist situation if you're LGBT? But they think that they're gonna be the ones in charge.
It's so weird. It's so weird, especially because of every place that was communist, and they try to come up with so many excuses on how China is LGBTQ friendly, or how Soviet Union was LGBTQ friendly, and all of this type of stuff. And it's like they really weren't. It was like probably the worst place you could live. And I think it's just this stuff that they've been grown up to learn, is that the more you pretend you're a victim, the more you can be heard and righteous and talk about, your oppression, your imaginary oppression and all this kind of stuff, while living in New York or, Los Angeles or some shit like that. Like, it's just fucking insane to me that they honestly think that their lived experience would be better out of the US and in China. or in the Soviet Union.
But they would never move there.
No, they won't. No,
like I would give that. I think we could set up a cultural exchange program between the woke left and Cuba, and it would be great.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. They would have a phenomenal time. They'll get to see their hero try.
Or we can send them to Iran, where their transition won't be accepted.
Well, there's that too.
I'm curious, Sarah, because you talk about this like pending wave or phenomenon in which people are going to detransition. What would you say of the trans community, just ballpark estimate, is going to go down the path of detransitioning? Like, what percentage of the trans community do you think is going to go down that path?
The transgender community or the non-binary. Well, see, that's the problem is like the non-binary community, most of them don't actually take any steps to transition. They simply self-ID. So there's really no way to tell the stats on detransition for them. People that actually have like the double mastectomies and take hormones or anything like that, I think we're at 1.3, or last in 2017, it was 1.3%. I think you'll see it go up to 10-20%.
Wow.
10-20%.
For people, yeah, the girls that had their breasts removed, I think you're gonna see their regret rate is gonna go up a lot.
I think so too. And there was a really good 60-minute episode that came out highlighting detransitioners and their experience on what they're in these places that just want to encourage you to transition. They don't want to encourage, having you to go and talk to somebody, make sure this is right for you. Like some of them were talking about like the whole experience from when they said they wanted to transition to when they chopped off their breasts or anything like that. It was a span of like a week and a half. No, but I mean, like the span of a week and a half. And then when they try to talk about it. No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what they're calling rapid onset gender dysphoria. And I don't like that term because it's not true dysphoria. So that's exactly what it is. It's like within a week, like when you see people on Reddit going, or not Reddit, but TikTok being like, oh, I just figured this out like a week ago. So I don't know what this all means. Like, then why are you identifying this way? Like, what are you going to take the whole steps to do, and do that? But you're absolutely right. Like pushing for it it's become such a trend. Now I guess we can think about it in this sense. If you really want to see what that rate will look like, it's like, look at the goth kids when we were in school. When I was in school, and how many of them still identify as goth as they get older? That's what's been taken over. Like the goth and emo crowd. Well, it went from goth to emo to scene kid to now non-binary. Like that's the transition that it's gone from.
That's what like you think that's the direction we've headed down. Is that basically?
I think that that's what they remind me of. It's like this people in school that want to be different but also conform to their to their group. That's what it is. So I think the goth kids are very indicative of what we're seeing now, because it's yeah, like I said, it went from goth to emo to scene kid. Now I think it is non-binary is becoming that, but the problem with it is not only are they being involved in activism, which none of those other groups have ever really been involved in activism, except for, rising against the state,
right?
Which they're all for the state now. And then they've co-opted the LGBT community's message, which after 2015, there really was no fighting for the LGBT community because we got everything that we wanted.
Right. Same-sex marriage through Obergefell v. Hodges.
Yeah.
So before we continue on, go ahead, Jay. No, go ahead, Jay.
No, you go. Habibi, you go.
I was just gonna say we're approaching an hour. No, you go ahead, Jay.
No, you go. Habibi, go. Please.
We're approaching an hour, so we're gonna for the Habibis who want to keep watching, go ahead and sub to us on Habibi. Whoa, shit! What is it? Patreon.com/. Yeah, Patreon.com/Habibi Bros. We're gonna continue the discussion behind there. We're gonna keep this going. But if you want to watch Habibi Bro, God damn it, Jay.
It's patreon.com/Habibi Bros. Down, you'll see the links down and below.
Yeah, in the description.
Just like Down's mom.
It's also
Just like-
right here.
Right. It's all
Right
down.
there.
All down.
Shut the fuck up, Spencer.
You're
Shut the
fired.
fuck up.
You're fired.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Spencer, Sarah's already my favorite guest because she fires
That's it.
Spencer for us.